Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Immigration Law for Tech Startups. I'm your host, Sophie Alcorn. I'm the founding partner of Alcorn Immigration Law. We're the fastest growing immigration law firm in Silicon Valley. And we support rapidly scaling technology companies and highly motivated professionals from around the globe to come to the United States and live here and work here legally and bring their families. So whether you have a startup, if you're an entrepreneur or an investor, an inventor, or professional, we would love to support you. And in today's episode, I am so thrilled to be joined by one of my amazing colleagues from Alcorn Immigration Law. Nadia Zaidi is an associate attorney with us who recently joined our business immigration team. She's based out of New York, and I adore that she was featured in Forbes magazine in 2017 for her expertise as a top US startup immigration law attorney. So welcome so much, Nadia. Great to have you here today.
Thanks, Sophie. I'm so excited to chat with you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So, what we are going to be talking about today, everybody, is the H-1B lottery and its aftermath. So, whether you were selected or not selected, we will be letting you know what you need to know about next steps. So, let's start with the best case scenario, Nadia, okay?
hmm
So if somebody was placed in the H-1B lottery and they find out by April 1st that they were selected,
hmm
uh, what does that mean for this person and the company that's sponsoring them?
Yeah. So if they're selected, it's amazing because it's a random lottery. So you really got lucky. And so the next step is that now you have a window of time during which your company can submit the full H-1B application to USCIS. And that window is April 1st to June 30th.
Okay. And is that something the individual beneficiary needs to hire a lawyer for and work on?
So that is something that the employer's immigration attorneys can work on with the employer.
Okay.
So so you should definitely work with your immigration lawyer to prepare that full filing and get it filed on time.
So if folks are in a company, they can harass their HR or company immigration lawyers to help them, but it's basically
Mhm.
that they're waiting for their company and those people to take the
Exactly.
next steps for them, right?
That's right.
Okay, cool. If it's uh, a startup, what are
Mhm.
some of the things that an early stage company needs to make sure they've gone through to participate in this process?
Yes. So first of all, the company should make sure that their EIN is registered so that they have that from the IRS. And then the LCA needs to be filed. So the LCA is a form that's filed with the Department of Labor, and it needs to be certified. And then the certified form needs to be filed with the full petition. So the LCA also includes a start date. And so it can be no more than 6 months before the start date of the job, which would be October 1st.
Okay. And these intermediate steps, based on your experience from last year within that 90-day window,
Mhm.
there's ample time for attorneys to support all of their clients with these steps, right?
There is ample time, but you definitely don't want to wait till the last minute. And, each case can be different in terms of timing. So if
Yeah,
someone's on OPT and their OPT is going to expire, then they definitely don't want to wait until June 30th. They probably
right,
want to have it ready way before.
right. That's a really important thing to draw out for our audience. I know we've talked about it on our webinars, but maybe not on the podcast recently. If somebody's in their
Mhm.
final year of OPT or STEM OPT, they're eligible for something called CAP GAP if and only if their full H-1B petition is received by USCIS on or before their expiration of their work permit, not their 60-day grace period. And if it's received, they can keep working until October 1st. Then they can stay in the US while they're awaiting their change of status. But for some people, it means that they might have a deadline before June 30th to prepare and submit the full H-1B. We actually have a few people I'm familiar with in that situation where their OPT ends the end of April or the beginning of May. So we're on we have to expedite. And then what about the companies that DIY'd it and did it themselves to register their employees in the H-1B lottery? Should they continue to do it themselves?
They should definitely try to work with an immigration lawyer.
Okay.
Because registering is one thing, even that, you have to make sure you do it correctly and provide all the information. But filing a full petition, that's when a USCIS officer is taking a really close look at everything and actually deciding if they're going to approve it, reject it, deny it, or issue a request for evidence. So you want to be prepared and file everything correctly.
Okay, great. And is the right time to hire an attorney in June?
Definitely not. Definitely.
When is the right time to hire an attorney?
The right time is now. The right time is a few weeks ago, but I think once you've been selected, you probably want to hire an attorney right away at that point, at the very least.
That very first week, because everybody's going to be filling up with their capacity to actually process these cases on time. Okay. Okay, cool. For what it's worth, if you are in that situation and need help, please do contact us, but not in June. The earlier, the better.
Exactly.
Cool. So when for somebody who's been selected and they're going through this H-1B petition preparation process, what are some of the decisions that those employers and employees might need to make together about the process?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and it's very important. So one of the big things they need to decide is whether the petition should be filed as a change of status. So if somebody's in F1 OPT, do they want to just change status to H-1B without ever leaving the country? Or do they want to file it as a new petition and then consular process, go abroad to their home country, probably consular process, and then come back with that H-1B visa stamp? So that's one decision.
Yeah. And for most, if somebody's outside of the United States right now, they should probably do consular. Well, they don't have a choice. They should do consular processing unless they expect to enter on some other sort of temporary visa before the end of June. And then it would last until past October.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. And if somebody's here and they have valid status through October 1st, I mean, it's COVID still. Are there any circumstances under which you would recommend consular processing for those folks? Or would you always say, like, where possible, do a change of status and stay in the US?
I would suggest change of status and stay in the US because consular processing is just fraught with uncertainty right now, at least until the consulates get back up to speed, COVID goes away, or at least the backlogs die down.
Right. Okay. Yeah, we are still not recommending international travel for anybody who can avoid it. The consulates are extremely backlogged. They're still at reduced capacity because there simply aren't enough visa officers at posts to make these decisions. Plus social distancing concerns, there's reduced capacity. The backlogs are growing.
Yep.
So we don't recommend anybody do that unless they have to.
Exactly.
And I had an interesting thing come up a few weeks ago. One of the people we're supporting is going to have a 2022 graduation date from their school, and they're being included in the lottery. And so if they get selected, I was suggesting we don't actually have to choose an October 1st start date. We could choose a later start date for that person to preserve their 3 years more later. So just fun things like that we get to figure out to help people. How about premium processing? Is that going to be available this year? Do we know?
Yeah, so that's one of those things that kind of gets swooped away when we need it most, or gets reinstated to our surprise. So premium processing, as far as we know, is going to be available. And it does speed up the time significantly, as we've seen.
Yeah. And after the first digital lottery process in 2020, they never turned it off, right? That was the first year where they didn't turn off premium processing for H-1B season. Yeah, because they don't have to sort through 200,000 paper-based applications that they're rejecting 2/3 of.
Exactly. So they're like, we might as well take the extra money for premium processing now. That's right.
So premium processing, not necessary if somebody's on OPT and it's not expiring. If somebody's on CapGap and it is getting close to October 1st, if it's like August or September and there's still no decision, that's a good time to think about using premium processing. Some people just want it for peace of mind, just because it's hard to wait. And if you have a strong case, it should be fine if you have the money and you want to add it in. So
I agree. Or if you get an RFE and you know that time has been lost on that response, then maybe think about it.
Back when I was practicing under the Obama administration, around the time when I started the firm, for those H-1B seasons, we could opt out of premium processing and we would still get the H-1B decisions in July or August in time for the visa applicants to go make their September visa appointments at the consulates.
The good old days.
October 1st start date, the good old days, back in my day. So I really hope that the people in the Biden administration will restore us to those golden days. But the reality is that COVID is still happening, right? So
Exactly.
So basically, just be really conservative. It's still high stakes time.
Agree.
Great. What are some other just general tips that you would have for people preparing to file?
Yeah, so you obviously want to make sure that you have all the documents that are required to file the petition. You want to make sure if any degrees or transcripts need to be evaluated, which hopefully you did before, but in any case, you want to make sure you have all those documents ready. You want to provide compelling evidence. So depending on what occupation it is, what the position is, you want to make sure you have evidence showing that it's a specialty occupation, that someone with a minimum of a bachelor's degree is required for that position. And you want to avoid mistakes or omissions because, again, you can lose a ton of time with an RFE that could have been avoided. And that's what we're here for. So that's something that we make sure to do with everything we file.
Thank you, Nadia. And for folks who want to hear more about what makes a strong H-1B petition, you can go back and listen to episode 9 of this podcast from last year. The basics have not changed, and that episode will help you be really well prepared. So let's pivot now for those folks who are bummed out because they were not selected in the H-1B lottery. What should they do? Let's talk about it.
Yes. So they should dust themselves off and make a plan for next year.
Take some deep breaths.
Yeah.
Some breathing exercises. There's meditation apps you can download.
Exactly. Not to panic. So try again next year. And so next year, we are very hopeful there will be big changes with the new administration. There may be no more random lottery. It'll be a wage-based selection process where wage level 3 or 4 will have the best chance of being selected if this pay to play system stays in place. And it will be a great change from what's been
Yeah.
happening.
I think it'll be really good for people who can get jobs at established tech companies or well-funded startups to make it through the
Hmm.
lottery. It might make it harder for small businesses or
Hmm.
very early stage startups to compete, but um, at least it would reduce some of the randomness, so you know what
Hmm.
you're optimizing for, you know.
Yeah,
And if
exactly.
and I guess if our listeners who are the job seekers would end up getting paid more through this process, at least that would be nice for them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, okay. So yeah, so especially people in OPT or STEM OPT, they often try to be in the lottery every year.
Hmm.
Sometimes people who are really savvy try to get employers to put them in the H-1B lottery before they even graduated if they accepted a post-graduation offer. So
Right.
that can be really advantageous. People on F1 whose OPT has run out if they don't get selected are often clamoring towards additional master's degrees,
Hmm.
whether they're in a STEM field and they can now get STEM OPT or like a master's,
Hmm.
an MBA. Some of those now involve data science and can be available for 3-year
Hmm.
OPT instead of 1-year OPT. Some people go to like a handful private universities.
Hmm.
There's some in Kentucky that offer CPT so that they can
Yeah.
work and study in master's or PhD programs. So people are trying all sorts of things.
Hmm.
Um, but one of the things I'm really excited about, I recently wrote an article that got published in Business Insider about this with
Hmm.
Danielle Goldman, who's the co-founder of Open Avenues Foundation, is this cap exempt H-1B and an H-1B with no lottery.
Hmm.
So could you break it down for everybody on like who has to go into the lottery and who doesn't and who can take advantage of this?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple of things with this. So cap exempt employers can sponsor an employee at any time without being part of this lottery. And so those cap exempt employers include institutions of higher education, related or affiliated organizations, as well as nonprofit and governmental research organizations. So you have to make sure that you would actually qualify to
Yeah,
be a cap exempt employer,
yeah.
and then you can do this. You can take
So
advantage of
cool.
this.
And we were
Hmm.
recently talking with somebody who has a job offer at a nonprofit, and we realized that they have a research affiliation with a couple
Hmm.
universities, so they might be able to qualify for this.
Yeah.
So let's say you decide that your company definitely can't qualify on its
Hmm.
own. Can you explain the concept of having two concurrent H-1Bs?
Yes. So if you have a cap exempt H-1B position, you can concurrently have a non-exempt H-1B position so that even the non-exempt employer can avoid the lottery.
It's a wonderful thing that
Yeah.
our okay, and let me just take a step back. Sometimes people tell me that I have a laugh like Cruella de Vil or Pinky and the Brain, but
It's
I just
because
get
of
so
your mind, your thinking, your
so excited about things like this. So I actually think this is like a triple win. And
Mhm.
especially with the way Open Avenues Foundation does this.
Mhm.
I'll explain the basic concept and then subscribe to the podcast because we're going to actually have Danielle on in a few weeks to talk about this more in depth. But basic idea, let's say you run a for-profit tech startup, no university affiliation, not eligible for this special magical thing. Great, but you have this brilliant person with a STEM degree who you want to employ. And let's say they're already in the US to make it easier. So you would nominate this candidate to the Open Avenues Foundation for their Global Talent Fellowship Program. And if they're accepted, Open Avenues would employ this candidate part-time, like 5 hours a week, to teach an online class to US college students in STEM fields who are diverse and often, underrepresented, and don't have access to good project-based learning. And so that foundation will sponsor your candidate for a CAP exempt H-1B. And as soon as they have that, your company can piggyback on and do a second concurrent CAP exempt H-1B for your for-profit company to work the other 35 or 40 hours a week. So it's amazing because you get to hire who you want, your candidate gets to stay and work, and you guys are contributing to improving STEM education for US students who otherwise wouldn't have access. And you're improving your pipeline of candidates as you recruit, because you're going to have students who are involved in group projects to help your startup, and they're diverse. So that's like a triple win, because diversity is better for the bottom line anyway for a company. Plus it's like, just being a good person, right? So I think it's, there's so many wins here. I'm really excited. And you just get to avoid the and as a byproduct, the person may remain in the United States and there is no lottery involved. And
it's
this is it's amazing. And it's most of these opportunities right now are specifically for people with science, technology, engineering, math degrees. But there's no reason this program could not expand. And I would just invite anybody in our audience who's affiliated with the university or who wants to know more about this to definitely reach out, because if we could help increase the groups that this program could serve, I think that would be a wonderful thing for the US education system and international students everywhere. So, yay. Okay, cool.
Yay.
So let's talk about other options. What else could people do if they have some level of professional accomplishment in their field?
So there are a few options that are called extraordinary ability options. So if you are an individual of extraordinary ability, and that is a USCIS legal terminology, exactly, term of art, then you may qualify for one of these options. And so there's,
if you're not as gorgeous as Melania Trump, or you're not Albert Einstein, you don't have a Nobel Prize, can you qualify?
The answer is yes, you might still qualify.
Okay, thanks.
So we have to assess it. Yeah, some people get very sort of, nervous when they see that extraordinary ability, but there's a lot more to it.
Yeah. And so, there's this visa option to work in O1A status. There's green card options. There's also the national interest waiver option. That really all needs to be determined on a case-by-case basis. If somebody's time in the US is running out, how to leverage that. For some, you need a company. For some, you don't. Depending on your country of birth, it might take longer.
Right.
And just assessing whether somebody's qualified. So we have a couple ways that you can figure out if you're qualified. You can, probably the fastest way is to take our quiz on alcorn.law, and that will evaluate if you're qualified and set you up for a consultation that you can self-schedule to figure that out. And for folks who want to learn more or think that they're at the beginning of their career and they just want to get qualified, we have a program, a class that we launched called Extraordinary Ability Bootcamp. And it's 15 video modules where I break down all of the requirements and how to increase your portfolio of accomplishments. And recently, we also we're looking at a partnership with a media company called LSX, and they are connecting tech startups that want PR with reporters. So if you have a tech startup and you want PR for an O1A, check out LSX. And we will also, put a link to Bootcamp in our show notes, and as well as our immigration options chart that outlines all of these different alternative options. Okay, so we have a few minutes left, and there's so many more things I'm excited about. Okay, so here's another one, startup founders. We are going forward with proving that people can use this thing that's been dormant for years because Trump tried to kill it, but he couldn't make it die. It's called the International Entrepreneur Rule. And it's better than an H-1B for startup founders because you don't need an employer-employee relationship. You can own more than 50% of your company. You can be the CEO. There's no board that needs to be able to fire you. And we're looking for guinea pigs to serve as test cases so that we can get some quick approvals for people to prove that this is a viable option and get some landmark victories that open up this pathway for more people. So if you want to us to consider you to take you on as our client to be part of this landmark effort, there's a link to our quiz. There's like a Google form that you can fill out in our show notes. And what we're really looking for is, do you meet the qualifications? So ideally, we're looking for people whose companies have either already gotten investment of about, I would say at least $200,000 from US angel investors or venture capitalists who are serial seasoned investors. So not just like a super pre-seed friends and family round, but if you've been in an accelerator program and if you've gotten a couple of, if you have like $500,000 so far, that would be amazing. Or if you've won any economic development grants, like from the US government, maybe like an SBIR grant, that might qualify you as well. So we only want to take the very strongest people first because we just want the government to approve these right away so that we can open it up for everybody else. And we're super excited for that. So please do sign up. And so that's International Entrepreneur Parole. And Nadia, what are some other options that people might consider as well if they need to visit the US or live here? We have all these smatterings of visa names. What are some that you
Yeah.
find?
Yeah, so you talked about continuing on F1 in a different degree. That's one. There is the E2 investors, treaty investor, but that you have to make sure that your country qualifies as a treaty country. There is the J1, which also is different for people in different stages.
J1's really great. I just want to throw out there that researchers can get a 5-year J1 to work at a private company as an employee and get paid. So
right, exactly. Keep that in mind.
Yeah.
And then there's the L1, which is if your company has multiple offices all over the world, you can see whether you would qualify for an intercompany transfer. And then if all else fails, there's also the B1, which is a tourist or business visitor, but it gives you some time to scope out opportunities and figure out your next steps.
Right. And to those people who are in love and married or marrying US citizens, because of a true, good faith, genuine, bona fide relationship, I would say that this is a time in our US immigration history where feminism might be put aside to just get a green card if you qualify. Somebody actually asked me about that once, and she was like, "But Sophie, I know you're like a big proponent of these marriage-based green cards, and I have this friend who offered to marry me, but I don't know." I'm like, no, that's not what I'm saying. Like, only do it if it's a legit marriage. But sometimes I have people who are so prideful. They like have lived with their spouse for years. They have dogs together. They might have kids. They share all their money, but they're still trying to do an independent immigration option.
Yeah.
Do we really need that?
Yeah.
I don't know. relationships
I
can be
agree.
tricky. So
Totally.
just, I have one teacher that said use everything. So
Yeah,
I like to think about that
it's
too.
stuck. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Cool. Okay. Anything else to add, Nadia, that you think people should know if they weren't selected in the H-1B process?
I'll just say that I think it's cool to just, figure out your options, talk to a professional, because sometimes you just don't think you qualify for something or know that something's available to you and it is.
So,
So,
yeah.
mhm.
Cool. Wonderful. And if you reach out to us, we can send you our questionnaire and let you know what we think. Happy to
Mhm.
do that. So wonderful. All right. Well, thank you so much, Nadia, for joining me today.
It was so much fun.
Really appreciate it.
Mhm.
And listeners, thank you for joining us on this episode of Immigration Law for Tech Startups. Please feel free to share this episode with anybody who would benefit from my discussion with Nadia today. You can subscribe. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, many other platforms, and we really appreciate when you give us ratings and reviews and feedback. And to stay updated and never miss another episode, you can also subscribe to our mailing list in the show notes and check out those resources I mentioned, our options chart, our guinea pig sign up list, extraordinary boot camp. We've got so many things to support you. So thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to talking with you in the next episode. Bye.